Hey everyone. If you are a business to business leader that's responsible for generating revenue, and you have heard from various different departments, such as marketing saying that the sales team stinks because they can't close their leads, and then the sales team is pointing fingers at marketing because they're saying that marketing is driving these poor quality leads and wasting our time, or worse, somehow sales is closing some of these deals, but then the operations team is saying that they're onboarding these clients that are a complete mess, not even sure what they even bought, and they're just beyond frustrated. And so when you look at the various different departments and the lack of alignment going on, you likely have significant revenue leaking out of your business. And what I want to do over this next 10 minutes is really kind of walk you all through some simple things that you can do to fix this in the next 30 days. With that, I do want to give a little bit of background on myself so you know who I am and what the concept is around what we do at my business. And so I'm Jay Feitlinger, and I'm the CEO of StringCan Interactive. And over the last 15 years, me and my team have worked with hundreds of companies, typically in the small to mid-market B2B space, where we're helping them find a way to turn marketing from a cost center into a sales engine. And that's really the point today, because working with these companies, I would say more often than not, they all start out in a similar situation where we have found that the lack of alignment in their departments is often a big reason why they're having some of these challenges with their business not reaching their growth goals. And I want to walk you all through the things that we've seen time and time again, so that way you can learn from this. And hopefully, over the next 30 days, if you apply some of this to your own business, you're going to see some significant improvements. And so, with that, I do want to start out with kind of talking about the revenue reality, where I think what's going on here that we've seen over the last couple of years, especially, is that the acquisition costs are definitely increasing to gain new customers. And this is tied to numerous things really out of your control. A combination of the various different platforms you're relying on have themselves increased costs. So they need to obviously pass that on to increase their shareholder value. You also have things like the economic conditions and various markets and tariffs and all the other things going on. So you got that going on. Then you have this disconnect happening between your pipelines, where between marketing and sales and operations, where everyone's just judging and viewing these leads in a very, very different way, tied to what I mentioned before, where sales is pointing fingers at marketing and marketing is blaming sales and data and all these things. And then you got your ops team just kind of stuck in the crossfire, having to fix up this mess. Where the truth comes down to it is that revenue is everyone's job, but likely no one is owning the system. And that's the core problem that we're going to be solving here over this next 8 to 10 minutes. And so the three areas where we're seeing around the reasons why you're having misalignment that's stalling your growth are typically in one of these three areas. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of our clients, before we start working with them, really have kind of all three of these areas. The first being around, you have your departments all focusing on different goals or your key performance indicators, KPIs, where with that, they just have different scorecards. And, again, if they're all aiming for different goals, where, sales has, their SQLs, their sales qualified leads they want, and marketing is optimizing for the marketing qualified leads. And ops just really wants, clean handoffs to onboarding. You got all that headache going on. And then on the CRM side, with the third point there is that we have actually seen that many organizations don't even have a CRM, or some actually have more than one. We recently had a client we worked with that had both HubSpot and Salesforce in place. But I think the bigger point I want to share here is that besides the having too many platforms in place, if you have, garbage data coming in, you're going to get garbage data going out. And so when you have kind of fuzziness around who owns all of this, and then no one's really driving the end-to-end revenue efficiency, you're going to have a situation where you have no single source of truth. And so from a leadership side, if you're asking questions regarding what's the ROI in our marketing, or how many meetings has sales gotten, and where we at in developing pipeline value and contracts, you're going to have people saying all different types and sizes, and even within various different or the same department, you're going to have individual people all giving different answers. And so I think this is where you have the trap around the misalignment side. And so on the positive end of that, what we have seen is that when alignment is actually in place, the the opportunities you have for success beyond 10x. It just gets so beyond exciting when you have shared revenue goals across the various departments. You have ownership that is clear from the funnel side, everything from the initial touch point all the way through trying to renew the clients for ongoing engagements. You have one go-to-market rhythm where between the tools and the reporting and the strategy and all the activities you're doing, it's all on heading towards one course. And then I think the most important part that I get most excited about is that when you do see alignment in organizations, and we've seen this happen over and over again, the level of trust that comes in play is so awesome. And then I think that when you have that level of trust in place, every business is going to have their ups and downs. And when you have the down points and things, again, like tariffs out of your control hitting you, your team is able to have really healthy conversations and not making excuses. And so a trust, I think, is very, very important here. And so when there's alignment in place, the analogy I love to use is if you think about building some really nice home or building, if you're going to build that on top of wet concrete or worse, some random stuff that you're building on the foundation, the house or the building is going to fall over. But instead, if you just take the time over the next 30 days and really improve your foundation as you're building up the company and looking at new markets and new offerings and whatnot, you're going to have a much better chance of success. And so why we're seeing a lot of the teams kind of missing all of this is that you've got the situation going on where you're hiring people, asking them to do a job, but you're not hiring them from the perspective of creating alignments. And so everyone's kind of just, buried in their own silos, where the sales team is chasing their numbers so they can hit their compensation goals. And then marketing is running a bunch of various different campaigns. And then again, like ops just stuck there trying to clean up the mess. And so what we have found is that why most teams are missing this is because it's not really a people problem, it's a systems problem. But the great news is that these systems can be rebuilt and it can be done, we've seen over and over again, very, very quickly. And so here is what we typically do for our clients when they hire us, but you definitely can do this yourself over the next 30 days as long as you have the right people involved and they are very much focused on trying to create improvements and they're open to having really healthy conversations. And so this is the steps that essentially you're going to go through. I'm going to dive into a couple of them a little more deeper here in the next kind of 2 slides, but high level, you want to really look at the entire journey and map out that flow. And then once you kind of do that, which I'll touch on here in a little more detail on the next slide, is then you want to really choose and find and fix those breaks that are helping you or hurting you from generating revenue. And then from there is looking at the messaging strategy you have both internally and externally and how you're handing off opportunities from marketing to sales and then sales to operations. And then, involving the marketing and sales team back in operations as need be. And then on the scorecard side is you want to really create a aligned system where everyone is aiming towards the same goal around revenue generation and having the right rhythm. And a lot of what I'm sharing you here, I know it might sound a little easy, but this isn't theory. We've done this with a lot of our clients' companies, everything from a smaller $15 million business to those that are well over $250 million. And they just do all of this and their teams have really open, healthy conversation built upon trust. We've seen results happen very, very quickly. And so on the flow side, diving in that a little bit deeper here, is the way that process should work is you should look at every touch point you have to prospective clients. And so you want to look at it from how are you talking with them? How are they finding you? What tactics you're doing from all the things around marketing. And then once marketing generates the leads through inbound marketing or from your sales team doing outbound marketing on typical business development activities, and then once they close those deals, how they're handing them off an operations team or customer services managing those clients. You want to look at very open-eyed all those various different steps and touch points to figure out where you're seeing some problems. And, for example, we had a client a few months ago when we did this whole flow map audit with them. We actually found that one of the biggest reasons why they weren't having conversions going from sales to operations was that almost 70% of their deals were literally just dying after the demonstration was done, where the company was explaining to their prospective clients they're offering. And, we dove into that and we quickly realized where the problems was. And it was actually a pretty quick fix around the follow-ups and the processes in place that the sales team didn't really have in place. And so, what was happening in that client scenario is the sales team was just blaming all the issues on marketing. But it wasn't really a marketing problem per se. It was a system problem where they didn't have a good process in place and how sales should be handling the prospective clients post deals. The cool thing is, after about a few weeks of fixing some of the areas that this company had, they actually were able to get over about $1.2 million more to their pipeline. And it's really all started with looking at the flow audit. On the scorecard part that I kind of talked about here, this is one of the areas that has been a challenge for companies to do on their own. So what we did for our team is, I think this would be a huge value for you all, is you can take a picture of the QR code and download the scorecard. We took pretty much our exact process that we use for our clients, about 20 questions, and put it into a document that you could download. And it really just kind of, it goes through on the first page, explains it all. Then your team will go through on the second page and answer each of the questions. My advice here would be is that you have individuals within each department filling it out. And then what you do is the leadership team would meet and review it. What's mind blowing to me is what we have found happening over and over again is not only is there a huge gap in the perspective between the three different departments, marketing and sales and operations, but we actually have found within those three departments for many of our current clients that individuals themselves within the same department answer these questions differently. So it is so eye-opening once you do this scorecard process to realize where you have some issues around alignments, and looking at, are you more, functional, but you're fragmenting, or just flat out misaligned. And so I would definitely encourage you all to download this and go through that process. And then with that, I know that I talked about some things and I definitely made some of it sound very easy. I know that we've heard from our clients that what we're sharing with them about this process isn't rocket science, but it's just so hard sometimes doing this when you're in the thick of things inside of your business. And so if you want help around getting additional clarity, I love talking about this with various different revenue leaders. So again, take a picture of this QR code and that'll send you right to my calendar, and go ahead and pick a 15, 30, 60 minute, whatever works for your calendar, and find a time where we can just get in a call. My intention would not be trying to sell you or pitch you on hiring us, but I just want to talk with you about giving you clarity around revenue, where it's stuck, and then how to fix it fast. So looking forward to talking with you all, and hope you found this of value.